Hey people, um, normally I don't, well, I do post all kinds of videos, most of the time showing discrepancies in how African American people here in the United States are approached by the police versus how they approach white Americans in similar or same circumstances. And one thing about me, I consider myself a very diverse, diverse person, and fair, firm, consistent, and I expect the same from everyone else, especially when it comes to the law enforcement community, in which I spent 16 years in law enforcement between corrections and police. How do I say this without alienating some more of my friends who just think I'm wrong for pointing out discrepancies and injustices that I see every day, that I've experienced every day since I was a kid? Let me start by telling you, especially the expectation of African American in particular as men, that we should always remain docile and not get angry and upset and talk trash, this, that, and the other. But I have to tell you, growing up in Miami, and I'm sure people all over the United States have experienced this. When you grow up having to avoid driving down certain roads through certain cities, being pulled over for fear of being pulled over. I mean, it was almost an expectation that if you drove down US 1 through Pinecrest, South Miami, Coral Gables, past University of Miami, you were going to be stopped. If you drove up and down Southwest 117th Avenue, through what we used to call Station 5 area, you were going to be pulled over. Again, when you're subject to this day in and day out, who's not going to get tired of that? Being pulled out of their car almost every time they get behind the wheel, regardless of whether you have a criminal record or not. It was just an expectation for me growing up. I mean, not only being pulled over, but being aggressively searched, going through your pockets, sitting on the ground, sometimes dirt, mud, or whatever else for that matter, tearing up your car, looking for drugs. Um, you know, so, and then when I look at this coverage that's going on with these police shootings, I'm hearing the lieutenant governor of Texas saying, well, they shouldn't protest against cops, or people don't really care about cops. That's a lie. Once a cop, always a cop. I love police officers, and I won't blindly support them, but I will support them wholeheartedly if they're doing their job like they're supposed to, if they're following the rules, if they're remembering the oath that they swore to. I can't blindly support you because you're in the same profession as me, and I will not blindly support my son, my cousin, my mother, my father, my wife, or anyone for that matter, just because they're related to me. And that's something that we have to stop doing. Right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of who the victim is and the person that's also committing the violation. I refuse to stand around and watch somebody's rights violated, even if it means me losing my job and having to find another means to support my family. This is not an exclusive thing where we have to just support all cops. We have to support each other. We can't keep saying, "Oh, well, we can't speak out against the ills and the wrongs that the few cops among us do." I have to tell you that, being that I was in law enforcement, I have the countless family members that are still serving and protecting as law enforcement officers. And I love them to death, and I know they're the best officers out there on the road, and I would not want any harm to ever come to them. With that being said, you know, if if 95% of the police officers out there that are good, that we deem good, which and I believe that 95% of them are good, but when 95% of police officers can witness or see another fellow officer doing something wrong, violating somebody's rights. Now, even when the person has broken the law, we cannot go outside of the law when apprehending them, and once we have them in custody, treat them differently. What makes us just as bad as that person that broke the law? And going back to my point that I started and sort of changed all of a sudden, I think that when we don't say anything about these few officers amongst us that choose to go act outside of the law and not use common sense, not adhere to their training, when we choose to support them, that 95% becomes bad. Now, you say you can't say all officers are bad. Well, that's the point we're trying to make about African Americans. You can't keep going through life and carrying out your duties as a police officer or politician or anyone else for that matter with the belief in your mind that all African Americans are bad, scary, and it's going to do some harm to me. So there has to be understanding on both sides, not just us completely understanding you all or your points of view, and you not make any attempts to understand ours. It's just not going to work that way. And if you continue to ignore a problem that has plagued African Americans for years, nothing's gonna change.
Well, one of the recent developments that has been just
Of course. Look, let me tell you something. I find countless videos of African Americans being shot for years for on traffic violations, on even misdemeanor arrests, and so on and so forth. I mean, shot dead within seconds, within minutes, or no, I'm not going to show you my ID. And then what I do is I turn around and I post videos showing some white person beating the hell out of you. Beating the hell out of you, pointing guns at you, pointing guns at everybody, and your approach is totally different. I even post videos of some of the experiments that white and black friends get together and do in open carry states, and they video record how the white person is kind of like, okay, whatever, all right, okay, Johnny, but then that black person that's with them, when the police pulls up on them, it's get down, 900 guns pointed at him. If he sneezed the wrong way, he's dead in an open carry state. These are the kind of differences that I'm talking about. It kind of takes me back to the Dred Scott ruling with the Justice Taney, who felt that we will never be citizens of this country. And sadly, I'm telling you, it has felt like that for me as a child. It felt like that for me growing up. It felt like that as an adult. And, maybe not exclusively with every experience I had, but, but when, just because it doesn't affect me, but when I see it, whether it's on TV, whether I'm researching, whether I'm looking stuff up on YouTube, it pisses me off to see that, one life is apparently more important than the other. When all lives, if you say that all lives matter, then there should never continue to be this type of discussion where where we have to keep saying all lives matter. If all lives matter, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I wouldn't be sitting here telling you that even with becoming a police officer, working with, cops that I've worked with over the years, and being stopped in Perrine, Florida, one time for P. Ryan. We got to give a shout out for P. Ryan. But being stopped in Perrine on 173rd Street in front of my grandmother's house with my U-Haul. I mean, the first question was asked to me, say, "Hey, Cleveland, what the heck are you doing over here?" What I mean, when I became a police officer, was it unthinkable for me to have ever lived over in that area or have family members in that area? So I jokingly told the guy, "Hey man, I'm black. I grew up here. This is my grandmother's house. The closing was delayed on my new home, so we're gonna stay here overnight." I was held for over 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours by officers that I work with every day. I let them search my truck immediately. Wasn't nothing but furniture in there. Now, it would have been reasonable if they were looking for suspects in the U-Haul that committed some sort of crime or was suspected of committing some sort of crime. But once they determined that my wife and I weren't that suspect, that wasn't the U-Hauler involved, I mean, we should have been let go immediately. But I was held there for 2.5 hours, angry, frustrated, cussing. After 45 minutes, I began cussing, fussing, dialing 911 every couple of minutes saying, "Hey, get me a supervisor over here," which never happened, never showed up. I became so angry, and mind you, both of my grandmothers lived on the same street, one on one side of 173rd and the other one on the other side. And I knew after about 2 hours that, hey man, you know what? They have no reason to continue holding me here. I'm pissed off. I'm getting ready to walk away. I'm getting ready to walk down the street to the other end of the street to my grandmother's house. And my mother begged me not to, because at that point I had a serious attitude problem. Um, and probably had they tried to arrest me when I walked away, I was going to fight, which probably would have been the end of my life. But I shouldn't have to live like that. We shouldn't have to live like that. I can remember driving down US 1 and being asked, where you going this time of morning? You know, uh, uh, why? Whose car is this? And so on and so forth. And don't get me started talking about, the professional athletes, the movie stars, different people who could afford Mercedes Benz, nice cars, so on and so forth. And because of the color of their skin, they're constantly stopped and questioned. And like me, I don't know. I never really showed my badge so that I can receive a break or to be treated differently. A lot of times I didn't show my badge because I wanted to see how I was going to be treated. And one shouldn't have to show their badge. One shouldn't have to say that, hey, I'm a professional athlete or a movie star, in order to be treated differently. Oh, okay, you're a different kind of black. No, I mean, it shouldn't be that. Everybody should be treated with the same respect. Everybody. We're in 2016. I shouldn't have to say, hey, hey, I'm an officer. I'm on my way to work, or just got up early and go get some coffee. I shouldn't have to explain that. It's almost like having to have a slave pass still. Guys, look, some of y'all can't stand me. Some of y'all unfriended me because all the videos I post. I'm going to continue to post videos that show the difference in how police officers, the criminal justice system, and everything else treats black folks different than whites. And I'm not just talking about black folks too, because some of the same ills that black folks and Hispanics suffer every day are suffered by plenty of white people and other races who are just poor. Sadly, it's a class problem and everything else. You know, they suffer the same ills. Sad to say. In fact, I met a young man up here in South Carolina a couple of years ago. That white guy had just got out of prison, serving 14 years. Um, he and some other kid, white kid, uh, and it was classified as a burglary, but it wasn't really a burglary. But anyhow, he ended up through the court system. Poor guy, poor white guy, um, and being sentenced to 14 years in prison. So when I met him a couple of years ago, he had just finished serving those 14 years. Uh, that young man is on probation for life until he pays $14,000 restitution. Now, the white guy that was with him, come from an affluent family, had never seen the courtroom, the inside of a holding cell, or anything similar to what this poor white guy experienced. I got a problem with that. I have a serious problem with that. And if you don't, you're sick. I got a problem with that. That's one of the reasons why, you know, I went through my first 2 years of law school, as some of you all know, and I got into an accident and I was sick and I had to sit out for a couple of years to get my health back in order. But if it's God's will, hopefully I'll be back in law school this fall and finishing up my last year in the semester or so. And you know what? It's not even about the money for me. I want to be in a position to do something different, to be in a position for those who can't afford legal representation in situations like that poor young man that I just described to you that's on probation for the rest of his life. It ain't even about just color for me. Yeah, I do have some issues in how African American are treated as a whole in this country, but I have a problem with anybody rights being violated, mistreated, or the system not working fairly for everybody. I got a problem with that. But bottom line is, guys, while I wrap this up, is I just got a problem with all these commentators on here talking about we don't like police and we shouldn't protest against police and all police not bad, all black people not bad, all Hispanics are not bad, all Muslims are not bad. All Christians are not bad, but there are some bad among us, and regardless of who we are, we need to stand up. We need to speak up, or you are bad. You're just as bad as they are if you don't. Silence against any wrongs committed against anybody is wrong. And if you have a problem with it, unfriend me. God bless you all. I love you all. But let's get out of this mindset of, who they think they are, and this, that, and the other. I mean, and before I go to, let me just say this. I've seen in the last couple of years a few white kids being shot up in their car by overzealous officers. And the parents come on the news and it's like, well, they were wrong and this, that, and the other. And I ask people this question all the time. Imagine Trayvon or some of these other kids being your child. Would you want the officer to respond in the very same way? I think Jane Elliott speaks about that kind of stuff all the time. I mean, would you want to trade lives with us, basically? But what I'm trying to say is it shouldn't take you, a white person or anybody else, a fluent person for that matter, to experience some of the harms that we face as African Americans on a daily basis for you to empathize with us. It shouldn't take that. It shouldn't, like the kid up in Seneca, South Carolina, when they tried to bust him for a little small amount of marijuana. The officer jumped in front of that vehicle. Somebody please explain to me, when were we taught in the academy to conduct any traffic stops or approach a vehicle from the front? When were we taught that? I mean, as many practicums as we did at the Criminal Justice Academy at Miami-Dade, nobody taught us to approach a vehicle like that. And one of the main things we were always taught is not to place yourself in harm's way. Now, most of us weigh between 150, 200 pounds or more. It was more in my case. But I mean, what the heck make us think that we can stop a car? If you jump in front of that car, whether that person is intending to try to flee or not, if you jump in front of that car, you can't place your life in danger and then use that as your excuse to shoot up that car with that person in it. I mean, you can't. I mean, that has to stop too. But sadly, like the case in Seneca, we don't understand that until it affects us. Let's not wait for some of these ills that take place in society, especially for African Americans and poor people in general, to affect us in our home and our families before we want to speak out against it.
It's true.
I love you guys. Bye.